Um, now I've got to go to this one here. Okay. Just before I got married, about a year before I was married, my father came to me and he did this old-fashioned thing where he actually had a piece of paper, he did a circle like this, and he actually sort of a bit like that into three. And he said, you need to get your finances and work it out like this. Now he knew what I was like, and if I had 10 bucks in my wallet, and I've done this to you before, I'd spend 10 bucks. Actually, I'd spend 12. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. So I'm not coming from the point of view that the moment I started working for myself, I had all my stuff together and everything was penny perfect. It was anything but. I was actually clueless in Seattle. I was so bad in maths when I left school that I didn't even finish third year. And so I had to learn over 40 years some of this stuff I'm telling you. So what I'm trying to do is save you some pain. Okay? And if I can do that, all right, every one of you will make mistakes. Be very thankful that you make mistakes because they are the things that you learn from, or should. If you don't, kick yourself in the backside, which is pretty hard to do. But the bottom line is you should learn from what you do. So dear old Dad, he came up with the idea that you'd actually tie this up and he'd go something like this, say, okay, your running costs, your just day to day, and this was actually your bills. Now, believe you me, this system worked for him back in the 70s because things were incredibly stable. Nothing like the interest rates we have now. They were actually higher than 1%. Nothing like the costs that we have now, which are way up here somewhere. But in 7 years, he paid a house off. He worked 7 days a week for 7 years and basically ended up with a freehold house. And one of the things which makes that work is when you think to yourself, have you got a plan? Because I had a plan that I got married and I'm going to be a support. I'm supporting my wife and my new daughter and everything else like that. But really, did I have a plan? And my question has to be answered, no. It was sort of like how it worked. And a lot of my carpenters that I've taught over the years, that's that exact statement. So over here, this is the typical household budget, and you can actually see today it's actually gained a couple of segments. So the actual assumption is that everyone's got some debt, everyone's got some saving, the housing, life, and transport. Cars are really expensive today, is that true? Right, that's probably realistic about what most people would be actually working in a budget. Okay, because the next step that comes with that is if we look down here, this is actually 2008-9 Commonwealth budget, and we're talking in the millions. Now, I did put an American one in, and I got rid of it. The actual dollars term was in trillions. The debt was just astronomical. But the bottom line is knowing in this pie graph where are we going to go and how much do I charge? So we've got to actually come to this point. We're going, well, this is my world. This is how much I've got coming in. How much have I got going out? So when I was 21, I got married and decided to go into business for myself. That was my first error. I should have actually waited probably 2 to 3 years, but instead I went straight off because I was so sick of working on wages that I wanted to actually run my own show. And what actually happened was when you first get married, all right, how many know there's a whole bit of tension going on as you settle into the pit of life, where dare I say it, she wants the mainstay. And you want the mainstay. You're actually working it out. Now, I'm fairly flexible, and one of the things I'm really good at is I can actually say, you know what, I'm really crap in the financial field, so I was very happy for Sue, who worked in banks, to actually run that side of it. It would be stupid of me to actually get out, I'm the man of the house and I run all the bucks, when I don't know how to save 2 cents. Okay? You use, see, because basically the analogy of marriage is an egg, okay, male, female, either way round, okay, your strengths, your weaknesses, and you interlock together, but between that you end up as a team. If you haven't got your family right, don't start a business, because that will carry over into your business. You've got to know how to have, whoever you choose for your work has to be stable, has to actually, I picked some people that were fantastic, great tradies, but their home life was a frigging train wreck. And guess what they brought to work? They didn't bring stability. See, the reason I chose Brent to work for me, and his figures are up on the board in a minute, was because he was stable. Okay, he could do the job, but he could also, right, he was absolutely stable. In the couple of years I've known Brent before this ever happened, right, nothing ever changed. It was always the same, and it's still the same today. If anything, biggest weakness is always takes on too much. Okay, but that's okay. At least you would rather have that than somebody who, is he going to show or is he not going to show? So we'll look at this one here. If you'd like to open up your resource book on your computer, I'm going to shut this one down. It'll be really good.
Where is the resource book?
So in your, okay. Now these are all over the internet by the millions. So my next question, and we'll see if you guys can actually beat Tuesday. How many people here actually actively run a budget? I know you do. Anyone else? Sort of? You're dead heat with Tuesday. Okay? Tuesday, bigger class than this one. 2 people. The biggest bone of contention in my marriage is budget. My idea of a budget is you just list everything through. Sue's idea of budgeting is like she's got this system which you actually look at the page after she's finished writing everything down, and it's all handwritten, and I had to take it to the Museum of Egyptian Hieroglyphics to actually understand what she's written. And it's taken, we've been married for 42 years. And we survived, but I can tell you we could have survived a whole heap better if we'd actually done something like this. Now, we can actually get one of these. Now, I'm going to actively invite you guys to actually start from tonight. Fill one of these in for a couple of months. And straight away, you will establish any areas where money's leaking and where you're actually gaining. And what you can actually do is, please don't lie to yourself. Okay, tell yourself the truth. Okay, because when you do a budget, it's actually you getting out there. And I reckon the reason why people don't do budgets is go, geez, I'm not good at that. Right, it's not my best thing. Okay, so we can have a look up here and we can actually work our way through. So you can tell it was originally back in 2006 how much I received for TAFE. When I started at TAFE, I actually took a $20,000 a year pay cut. From the moment that I actually started, what I received from TAFE was 20 grand less than what I actually earned at the time. So I was around 70. I got paid 50 because I had to start at lecturer 5 level, and then the 30% that came off that for tax meant that I was actually pulling them around about 35 grand that we could actually play around with. Where ordinarily I was getting 70. So for the first 3 years, I worked every weekend, okay, to actually up that amount and did jobs, which is where Brent came in on a couple of the jobs I did. Okay, so we had to, that was how we survived. And then as I progressed through the ranks, the step levels went up, and gradually I got closer and closer to that 70,000 mark, and basically I was in a much better condition and I didn't have to work every weekend. But also, as well as doing the job, I was actually setting up other jobs. And so that took some work, but I actually used this, and this is what I used to do. My first spreadsheet was on an Excel, and I'd actually put the figures in manually, and all I would do is use this fantastic thing here. I thought, wow, how awesome is that? It actually adds it up automatically. I didn't know how to do a formula or anything like that, so my computer skills were like about a 0 with the rim knocked off. And basically, I used to put everything in, and because I like things neat and tidy and straight, perfectionist, right, I love putting all the figures in, and I had that right, but the rest of it, oh, not too good. So, these here are free. You can get these anywhere, okay? The effort and the cost is actually spending a couple of hours initially to set this up, and then every time you pick up fuel, you just put it in. Every time you actually, and pretty soon, you're going to get an idea whether you're actually going to be in a negative or a positive space, here and here. If you don't know, it's too late at tax time. Now, one of the biggest problems with being a subby is you get paid a rate which is actually covering all your costs. And so that was my biggest weakness. So I get $1,000, I go, wow, bang, out I go, and I blow $500 here and $300 there. But the problem being is that 1,000 wasn't mine. Half of it actually belonged to all the other add-on costs. And if you don't know that, or you ignore it, and you keep on doing that every time, know what I'm talking about? I got apprentices that I, second year apprentices, and they rock up to TAFE in an SS Commodore, for goodness sake. Only trouble is they had no wheels, and they had people carrying it because they couldn't afford tyres for it. Right? Well, they bought it because it was a chip magnet. That was even worse because they didn't expect them to spend money on them, they didn't have any. Because they're paying it. Now, I'm making light of this, but this is reality. How much do we charge? So I'm not going to save anything on that. I'd like to happily report to you after 40 odd years, my dear other half has actually started to do a budget, and we are flogging along pretty well. Okay. All right, my last big job was a chap by the name of Glenn Manier, and this is right at the Glenn runs Adelaide Solar, and he's also a client that I've had for over 18 years. I built 3 houses for him through my brother-in-law. He's actually Greg's best mate. So he said to me, Baz, I want you to do a roof extension for me. And so this is while I'm working at Mailstone. And so this is basically me doing the design, the drawing, the measure up, the takeoff, design IT specs. So these are all the costs listed up here. Back those days I was charging $50 an hour, okay, as a charge out rate. And then over here you can see these figures running through here. These are actually the timber account, some ply we had to buy, nails, insurance, okay, which is all the work cover gear, some cupboard material, okay, some material for bracing which my other mate Stuart bought, and a second Aldinga account, this one here. So when we actually look down here, this is the bit that should interest you guys that are actually out in the trade. Okay, whatever you've allowed, that's fine. But what you need to actually do, then over here, and this is my most important thing, and there's Brent Eason here, okay? And these are the hours that we worked, and we worked long hours. That was one hell of a job.
Because you had to teach in a fortnight's time.
I did. So in a fortnight, we did a $50,000 job, basically the main shell. So it was full on. So when we actually have a look at, these are the dates, so 16th of the 4th, and about this break here is where we got to, and you can see very little of me. This has then went on for several Saturdays to actually finish off the job. Now, I estimated that this job would take $50,000 to do. That was what I said to Glenn. He said to me, don't worry about it. He said, whatever it costs, I will pay you. He said, I know you won't rip me off. So when I finished it all, amazingly, it came in at $51,296.93. And we ended up, remember that cupboard? He decided that he wanted a cupboard, and so we ended up actually putting in around about $1,200 or $1,300, or else we would have been under the 50,000 mark. Now, I can tell you quite confidently that no other job in my 40-year building career ever came in so close as Aqua. Okay, but it was just absolutely unbelievable. So here's the charge outs. Here's the actual payouts through here. So I'm knowing exactly how much I've got coming in. I'm knowing how much I've got going out. And then we actually look through here. There was $13,790 labour to be paid. There was 7,190 payments, which I reckon is timber. And basically, what we did was a trade for a solar system. So I put a 5.9 kilovolt solar system on the house, and that was around about 15,000. And then the balance of that actually went through here. 14,500 was the solar account, and then this was the actual labour. So there's about $28,000 worth of labour total. Now, that took me 40 years. If I had to do that when I first started, I wouldn't have got anything like that. It would look like a human scroll. But I actually taught myself to actually be in control of what was coming in, what was going out, and where we're going. So my question to you guys is, whatever your individual plans are, the number one thing that you need to be thinking of is, if you're going to be looking along, working for yourself, who's done small business finance? Most of you guys, did you learn it well? Practice it. Practice it, because I can tell you, way back in 1970, small business finance was about this thick. There was nothing. There was all emphasis on trade and no emphasis on running on a business. And the reality is, the statistic is pretty much even. 90% of all new businesses fail in the first year because of lack of preparation, lack of actually understanding how much it's costing you. And that's sobering. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is save you some pain. And then when you look at those jobs, I survived because I worked for builders and I didn't necessarily get the best price, but I got a good price. But I could also charge more for my own private work, and I always had $15,000 or so worth of private work ahead of me all the time. My guys would say, how come you keep on booking up work? I said, because you have to have work coming in. You have to know it, and you can't just look at it and go, it's $15,000 we've got coming in. No, there's material in that, there's ongoing costs which you have to cover, and that's your main key thing. All right, so when you actually work out how much you're getting, and I've had apprentices go, oh wow, this great opportunity, my boss at work, he's put me on as a subbing, and I'm on $25 an hour. And I go, and he's ripping you off. because he should be paying him more like $50 an hour.